Yeah, you did bring that up on your own volition just then.
Well, you sort of introduced the topic.
Yeah,
I know it seems like
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a way of being manipulative.
Yeah, that's all right.
Accident.
That's welcome on here. It's a judgment-free place, as you know.
It's not a gotcha podcast.
It's not. No.
And you get to edit your own podcast, so like you could edit this and make me look terrible. And
He can make us look so dumb.
Yeah, I could. I mean, yeah. But I would never do that.
Yeah.
Even like when there's like AI that'll clip it for you,
Yeah.
and they zoom in on the places that are more likely to be controversial because they want clickbait, you know. But I try not to take. There's been a few times where I've taken things out. I'm like, oh, that's like obviously the time that was the funnest moment. But then when you take it out, it does kind of make the person look like they're just like trans, blah blah blah, or whatever, you know. And so it's kind of tricky, like figuring out how to clip it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Taking it out of context of the rest of the piece.
And then you can have like references to previous things said. So if it's like clipped out, then like it could like make it weird where you have to like, well, this won't really make sense if you clip out. Yeah. Yeah, you got a hard job, man.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes just fantasize about not doing the clips because I've got to where the podcast, like, we just do it, and I usually don't edit anything unless there's something you want me to edit out. It's rare. It's just up so fast. The clip, making the reel and captioning it is like the biggest bottleneck of time. Whereas I don't really enjoy that, but I enjoy talking to you guys. You know,
That feels like a comedy thing in general, where it's like, I know the clips, just the posts, like. I know that's so important, but man, it's just like not the fun part.
It's not why I started. Yeah, that's true. I guess it's just comedy in general now. You're supposed to do the reels.
Yeah.
And then it's just understood that the reel is a fleeting thing that no one gives a shit about tomorrow. Like that's the real weird thing. Yes, exactly. Where it used to be like you'd spend forever mixing something and you'd at least have the delusion that it would
last
on.
Or something.
Last like a year.
Yeah. Stick somewhat in the cultural consciousness.
Yeah. I think it was just now it's like the gap between what you can just think. There's a Black Mirror episode about like you just tell Netflix like make me a movie starring this person where this happens and the AI just makes it for you. I feel like we are kind of approaching a point where it's just you can just like content just isn't really doesn't last because it's just like every day there's exponentially more of it. So it's just its value is just like meh.
Yeah.
So this is, I mean, I think like a connection like this is is more valuable than ever, like a real conversation with people. But then all the fucking clips and shit, it's like, I don't know.
I mean, it is crazy. Like way back in the day, you could have like a 92 share of the television audience at that point in time. Like, you know, it's like in the golden age.
Seinfeld, like the must-see TV 90s of NBC, or you mean like back,
even like way back, like when there were 7 stations, like it would be like, you know, 80 million people would be watching, you know,
like MASH or something.
Yeah, like back in the day, like way back, like 50s, 60s, you know, like
Andy Griffith and all that.
Yeah.
And there's the shared experience, like, because Emily, my wife, is like really into crossword puzzles, and it's just, you guys have heard the thing where if you do it on the day it comes out, it's easier. Because I mean, the reason seems to be that because so many other people are thinking about it at the same time, it actually is easier. Have you heard that idea before?
It's just like in the air.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, so it seems to be true. So I think that, you know, like if you go to a movie and see, if you watch a movie with people, I think it's generally better.
Oh yeah,
unless it's a disruptive audience or something. Yeah, and this idea that like maybe if it's just happening at the same time somewhere else, like miles away, it could still make it slightly better.
Yeah, it's like a butterfly effect, kind of like.
No, not really, to be honest. Okay,
it's not a provable logical
It's not like
thought.
offending me that you believe that, but I don't think I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. I guess I would have to like see
some data,
or just like
we should look that up afterwards. I wonder if they've done some studies. I've been led to believe that they've measured it, and it's like you do better on the crossword if you do it the same day everybody else is doing it.
Hippies are really good at leading you to believe that data exists that may or may not exist.
Yeah,
let a little magic into your heart, Coble.
This is where I remember that I'm talking to comics from not from Asheville. Like, oh yeah, like this is just like now that we've been talking 10 minutes, how about no, dude, we believe in
thinking about this earlier.
South Carolina is very big on math and science.
We're huge on STEM, big STEM town.
I was thinking about that earlier. We're like, a topic can be hack in Asheville that someone in South Carolina wouldn't even know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah,
They'd be like,
right.
life coach? What's a life? Shitting on life coaches in Asheville, it's like almost hack at this point because it's just like or like crystal stuff. Like, and someone in like Sherall, South Carolina would be like, what the hell are you talking
even like
about?
if you went to Comedy Zone and tried to do like a polycule bit, half the audience probably wouldn't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's funny. Like,
the
circles don't even touch, like in the Venn diagram. It's hack. We don't know what the fuck you're even like. We don't know that word.
And Greenville is just. I feel like we're always just like a couple years behind Asheville.
Yeah.
So I feel like like 2028. You can take all the jokes from this year from here and just crush in Greenville.
But ahead in some ways. Like definitely, you just walk around and you're like, it's not as white, right? Like isn't Asheville more white? I think
yeah.
So that's kind of part of the Asheville, like these other places, and it's just like a bunch of white people. Like, it's like y'all are talking about how it's better when everyone's white. Basically, you're not saying that, but so there are some things that make me think, like less pretentious. I almost think being less pretentious is the next thing, and Asheville's still kind of like holding on to like, but we're the coolest. It's not really. It's not. It's not like it's fucking.
I mean, I like it here. That's why I come here.
Yeah.
But I do think like, I don't know. It's definitely like specific topics that Asheville is definitely less judgmental about than other places in the South. But like outside of those specific things, it's still like human beings are human beings, and they're gonna talk
what
talk shit and like be jealous and mean to other people and everything like that. So
I should be getting out more shows. This person shouldn't. People are the same everywhere.
They didn't wait their turn.
Yeah. Maybe they got funny faster than you did. You ever thought about that? That's a hard thing to accept, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But then it happens enough times to you where you're like, all right, that is a real thing. There's just people.
Yeah.
The longer you do it, the more there's just people that come and they're just like, fucking figure it out quick. And they're rare, but like you can't help but be like, what?
Well, the thing like you talk about is the lean-in factor that
Both.
some people
both.
have that, and it's not something that you can just create overnight for yourself.
The ability to manufacture it in their factory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like you are like either just very charismatic or like just a different sort of person who's different in a way that seems interesting to people that they can like identify as like an archetype of person, that is interesting. And like some people have that and some people don't. And I do not have that. Like, that's not like a natural thing for me that I have.
Yeah, I don't think I have that either. I mean, I feel like there's something cool about being like, you got nothing just on like I don't feel like I walk into a room and people are like, who's that guy? You got to like actually do it with the words and the writing. Mm-hmm. But I think the part of me is kind of like jealous of just like, if I could just get like, if they just like found me to be super interesting before I said anything.
Yeah. Just wear that Hercules wig again. And everyone will, I'm sorry. I'm doing callbacks to previous
that's
episodes.
good. I'm
a little inside baseball today.
Just tying it all together.
Well, when you're the Home Planet podcast super fan, like you gotta drop the deep cuts a little bit.
It means a lot that there is a super fan. It really does, because it's like sometimes it feels like just podcasting into the void, which I would still be fine with, but it is nice.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be doing stand-up if we didn't like attention at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's this idea that this can help us at stand-up. Like, we're holding a microphone. Mm-hmm. This is the side of stand-up where I don't know, like, do you tend to like write stuff out, Chris, before? Or do you kind of find things on stage, or?
I feel like I work stuff out in my head usually. And then like once it's in a place in my head where I'm like, all right, that is something, that's when I'll sit down and I'll like write it out word for word. But then like I just almost never look at that again. Like I almost write it out just to like make sure it sticks like in my mind. But I feel like most of it is just kind of like, I don't know. I also don't explore that much on stage either. It's usually just like I'm sitting in my car, just like just running the same idea over and over again. And so I'm like, yeah, I think that's something. And then it's like, all right, I've thought about it for like 2 hours. I should probably write this down. See where this goes.
Do you visualize yourself? Like, is it just the words, or do you see yourself moving around on stage?
That's a good question. You know what? I honestly kind of do picture myself on stage at Coffee Underground, like at that open mic,
like the home court mic.
Yeah, I never even thought about the fact that I do picture myself like doing the jokes instead of just like thinking the words.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I just started visualizing, which is what people have said my whole life. But when I was taped that thing, I was like, really, I just never had it be that clear what I'm going to do. So I started playing it in my mind, and like, I think it can help you kind of like, I don't do a lot physically, so that can maybe kind of help you.
Yeah, especially if you're like more of a writer than just like a natural charismatic person. I feel like it's easy to not incorporate physicality into it unless you're like thinking about it in the writing stage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like a weird thing with psychology, that like some people are naturally much better at visualizing things in their head than other people. Like it'll be like an internet thing that'll blow up every few years where it's like, visualize an apple in your head, what do you see? And it's like, for some people it's just like a contour, simple drawing, and for some people it's like they literally can close their eyes and visualize a 3-dimensional apple in detail and stuff
4K.
like that. Yeah. And I'm very much like terrible at like visualizing like anything. Like I can draw well if I'm like looking at something, but like as soon as you're like draw blank, and I'm like, oh, I can't like, remember or visualize what that looks like at all. So
yeah, I bet there's exercises you could do if you wanted to be like, I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day practicing visualizing, but there's a lot of shit to do every day.
Yeah, that's just one more thing to add.
Yeah, then you're like, now I hate visualizing stuff.
Now it's homework.
Yeah.
I'm good with like audio though. Like I can like if I'm thinking of a song,
Yeah.
I can remember and kind of hear it in my head a little bit, or like a joke or like dialogue from a show. I'm very good at like remembering dialogue, but with visualization, I'm pretty terrible, I think, naturally at least.
Yeah, I think I'm better at audio too. I can hear an arrangement and be pretty confident that like what's happening, just visualizing the sound, I guess. I've just been doing that longer. It is weird to think about like what your blind spot, because you never really know what it's like for somebody else to visual, like what that even, let's visualize it, and then the person telling you that's able to do some 4K shit, and you like think you're doing what they said, but it's this shitty version of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm a little bit face blind. Like I kind of like if I see you, like if I work with you and then I see you out, sometimes I can't quite recognize you for a minute because of the context, So you just become aware of like people point things out to you and you're like, oh, I guess in that way the average person is sort of like a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they just don't realize you're not good at something until it becomes abundantly clear. Yeah.
Like I took all these like a tests for like, I got diagnosed with anxiety at the end of it. I thought it was going to be ADHD. I have a joke about it, but anyway, they were like working memory was like the thing that I need to work on, or that's my lowest one. Like RAM, like how many things like I can't hold a lot of things in my head at once. I can get laser focused on something and do a great job.
I'm the same exact way. Like if it's like one thing, like I can. But like if I'm like, oh yeah, I got to remember to like call that person, or like change the laundry over to the dryer. Like if it's just like
maddening.
Gone.
So I'm always like trying to write on lists, like but then like bumping into people trying to get to the list, and it's creating more problems for me.
Is it even with like simple stuff? If someone's like, my number is, and tells you their number, you can't like store 7 digits.
I used to, like when I was a kid, I still know all those phone numbers. So there is an element of like, if you practice it, you know, but then it's like, you're also kind of outsourcing a lot of your short-term thinking to machines now too.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I were focusing on practicing the visualizing, I might not be able to like do the podcast. You know what I mean? It's like, do you need to be able to do this shit in the 80s?
Well, my dad,
does that skill matter anymore? Like,
my dad would give me shit about like not being good at spelling or geography. That's like so easy to look up, and then like he's like can't tell what's like a scam on his email or whatever. It's like we have different blind spots. You said,
and if there's an apocalypse, he'll be like, "Ha! I told you," but probably not gonna be.
Yeah, but when we reinvent email, you're gonna need me.
Yeah.
That's like my grandpa was like a carpenter, could like take apart and build cars, like build anything, but it's like anytime like a Saudi prince would email him, just like hands his bank account and for like right over, like no thought.
It's like, you're so smart in these ways.
But why doesn't it?
That's a little terrifying because like I'm watching that gap shrink where it's like, they're the text messages that are like seriously, you owe us for your license plate, toll thing in West Virginia. I'm like, I was there last year. And I'm still like, wait, look at the URL. This is fake. But but it's getting like, I'm getting older. It's getting more sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that before I die, they won't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's be realistic.
Like, I mean, every time I get one of those scam texts, there is that thought of like, oh, does the court just text you now?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That feels right, I guess.
It kind of is what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Well, now there's like programs that scammers can route their, like, they'll be calling from a laptop and be able to change what the number says on your phone. Like, they'll like confuse your caller ID.
Yeah.
So they can be like, yeah, I'm support from the bank. And then you look at the number and they are calling from the number that's associated with your bank.
Oh, wow.
But it's like not actually your bank.
See, that's not the Saudi prince. That's like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I mean, yeah.
Some real hacker stuff.
Yeah. Like, I would watch a movie about the people doing that. They're probably pretty cool.
Pretty chill dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We embrace the lulls,
Living it.
Trying to lean more into those on stage and on the podcast.
Yeah,
And I feel the tendency to go, but that's just.
I've been recently just trying to like be like, hey, if it gets quiet on stage, just like let it be quiet for a second.
Yeah.
It's kind of I feel like you do have to kind of fight your like natural instincts a little bit.
Yeah.
But like once you just kind of get comfortable, it's like
Yeah.
existing on stage without having to fill that air. It's so nice.
I think you complimented
Yes.
on me the last time I was on here about how I'm like good with pauses and silence and stuff like that.
And walking the stage, you do some things that I'm kind of trying to add in. It's more. I'm always trying to like kind of own the space a little more and pause more. When I see pause, I go, that's the most confident thing a person could do is just shut the fuck up for a minute when everybody's looking at them.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's also, I guess, like if you're just trying to like get yourself on the same, like you want to be on the same vibe as the crowd. It's like, all right, if they're like quiet, I'll get quiet with them for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of come back together instead of me trying to like force you to be like excited.
It like comes off desperate if you like seem too eager to like get them back.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're just like,
totally. That's like my whole comedy journey is listening back and hearing myself do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think it's just slowly less and less. But that, just like you say it's something new and they don't laugh, so you just blurt out the next thing.
Yeah.
Which actually they might have laughed if you just let everybody be chill about it. But now you've signaled that you don't even believe what you're saying, and the death spiral begins. Like the number of times I've listened back and watched back and be like, fuck, it's less now, but it's like it's
you
so
pull the
hard.
rug out from under yourself. Like
Yeah.
I think that's what took me a long time to get good at, is like not freaking out when I'm not getting the response I like anticipated from a joke. It's like, all right, if I'm not getting laughs, especially the first couple of years, you freak out and you're just like word vomit, like just going crazy. But then just like learning to be like, all right, that one didn't work. Just be comfortable. Like sets you up so much better for the rest of your set instead of like going into fight or flight.
Yeah, they don't even maybe know that you were expecting a laugh there.
That's the thing. They don't know your jokes.
You tell them, and then they're like, "Yeah, you are bombing. Why would I?" So much like that, just self-sabotage. That's like, it's one thing to just be like that. That wasn't my night. But then when you're like, "Fuck, I did that thing again."
Yeah, what is the thing you could have prevented like from happening?
Yeah,
I'm trying to get more into getting mad at the audience for not laughing. I think that's. I love seeing that at the Comedy Zone open mic. It's like, who pissed in y'all's cereal this morning? It's like, well, I'm up next, so please don't do that. But,
shit on the people that are here trying to be part of it.
It always works.
It always works to be like, y'all's assholes are tighter than fucking whatever.
What you said, Chris, kind of reminded me of like music too, trying to like, if they're being quiet, you be quiet. It almost kind of sounds like playing music with people, where you're kind of like, do y'all feel like it's kind of similar? Like
matching the energy,
I think like jamming with people, like music-wise, it's very similar where you're just kind of like, all right, except in stand-up, you're one person that's just a little more in control of everything. But it is kind of like, all right, we're just kind of like freestyling, trying to be on the same like wavelength together.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a whole level of it that's just that, I think. Like, there's so many different, like, models of, like, what it is. It's like, I'm the crazy person you can just watch and it's funny. And then there's kind of just, even before you get laughs, like, if you are just kind of in the... Have you ever seen somebody do a set and it's like, Well, there really weren't that many laughs, but I think that was pretty good. You know,
Yeah.
it was engaging.
I think you can get away with not being like not killing like laughs per minute stuff if your like material's also just interesting to listen to.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I it took me a little bit to think of a good example. Like when you said that, I definitely like recognize what you're saying and know I've seen that, but it took me a little while to remember like who would be an example. But when I went to see Joe Pera, one of his openers was this woman, and she was like very musical. Like there was like a melody and a like rhythm to what she was like telling her story that was almost like what someone would do, like almost like musical poetry. And people weren't laughing that hard, but I was like, oh, I've never seen anything quite like that before. And that was definitely like engaging and enjoyable, and like kind of set the tone for this being like an alt show, with something like very
right. It
different,
makes then you got a joke teller up next, and it's kind of better because there's a variety to it. Yeah.
Exactly. Only so many bearded white guys in a row,
I know. I mean, I think about that all the time, as you know, because you listen to the the podcast. But like the idea of like standing out, or it's being like 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, just jokes, but it's just like not that memorable. Versus like maybe the joke writing is like more like 5 out of 10, but you just keep thinking about it for a few days after. You're like, that person was just something different,
Yeah.
Something sticky about it.
Yeah. Like uniqueness.
Yeah. I do think like being able to do both is amazing, but that's so hard to like switch gears like that for sure. Where like you've talked on this podcast a decent amount about like how if you can't do crowd work, that will be like a vulnerability that people will become aware of if you're on stage for long enough.
I believe that in my heart of hearts. If you are afraid of crowd work, they can sense that. Yeah. And your material will never be as good. Yeah, because you're afraid. You're just always a little afraid of that conflict. Yeah, or something like somebody drops a drink and you're like, huh! And then they're like, aha! He's not confident at all.
There's blood in the water now.
Yeah. Keeping the illusion that we're confident. Yeah, and it's the you just thought of it like it shatters the lie.
Well, what you're saying is like I feel that way about crowd work a little bit, about just like. There's very rarely crowd work where I see that and then I'm like thinking about it a week later that like, oh, when that happened and then such and such. But like crowd work is so in the moment that you like get extra points for the fact that it's spontaneous.
Right.
Whereas like there's not that many instances of crowd work that I still think about, but it definitely like supplements the performance so much if you can do it.
And I guess for the audience, it's a fun thing of like, oh, like we're the only ones getting this. Like this isn't part of the act. It's like a one time only just for us little fun thing.
It's a little bit of he did the thing. He did the thing. Like when you do a great callback,
this person sees us too. I think it's like that. They're not just talking into the mirror. Like if you address something that they did, you're kind of like seeing them, which I think can help. But then I'll notice sometimes too that like if I'm like nervous or I start to kind of feel like it's not going well, crowd work does become harder because it's like, and this is just me, just my own weird theory. I don't necessarily think this is true for anybody else, but like how comfortable I am in my body and in this set is like directly proportional to how willing to do crowd work I am. If I'm like bombing and it's like, to get the cold sweat, like crowd work becomes very hard.
Yeah, I feel like you also don't want to do crowd work in a bad mood either. Like it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, because then you're just like naturally going to like attack, and I feel like that's like a tricky line because
got to get Cody to do that.
I don't think mean crowd work works unless, like you were saying earlier, like shit on him. There's sometimes it can work, and my feeling is like if you're like, I live in my parents' basement and I'm a piece of shit, and then you're like, and fuck you, they're like, this loser, you know what I mean? But if you're like trying to be like smarter, like
I work at a hedge fund and fuck all you losers.
Yeah, then it's like, hey,
I can't remember what comic it was, but they said like about like a tacky kind of crowd work. They're like, you're already on a stage elevated above them with a mic. You're already like so much higher status, just default. Like, they're not going to be immediately on your side when you start being mean to them.
Yeah,
Like,
you're gonna be an asshole about it too.
Yeah.
You're like louder and higher.
Travis pulls that off well too. I mean, it's a risky gambit that more people think they know how to play than they actually.
Right. Because you watch Cody or Travis do it and you go, that looks fun. I'll have a go. And it's like,
and everyone's just like, is this like, oh my God, I don't know.
I've definitely been accidentally mean where I'm kind of like I did that a lot early on where somebody, like I'm seeing them be disruptive, but the room has really doesn't feel the same amount of anger.
Yeah.
And you come in like, yeah, why don't you shut the fuck up? And everyone goes, oh man, Ryan's an asshole. Like, he's mean.
Are his kids
We're
safe?
with the guy he was mean to. Yeah. Like that's the thing too, where it's like, you can't get mad at him.
no.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy early on because you're like, I had to like take time out of my day, drive here, find parking, wait around to do 5 minutes with this joke I've been working on, and then you're going to be like, ugh.
Yeah. It was like the worst. Just
Yeah.
like, you should all pity me.
Eventually you're just like, oh yeah, that's just part of it. That's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
What do y'all think is going on in audience members' heads who like want to like be a part of the performance where they're like yelling out shit, like not like heckling, like mean heckling, but like, oh, I'm fun and I've had a couple drinks and like I'm gonna just say
I think it's
non
Tourette's. I think
sequiturs.
Tourette's is a spectrum, just like
Yeah.
autism, just like sexuality. I think some people just can't. Like
Shut up.
Impulsivity. I mean, I notice on this podcast that when I listen back at 9 times out of 10, I'm like, I got excited and I talk too much. So I sort of relate to it, you know?
Yeah.
We're talking about my favorite stuff. I think an audience member, if they're just like, they're excited.
Yeah.
It just comes out.
Yeah.
And that's tough because, if you shit on that person, they're genuinely like a happy child.
Yeah.
And you're like, shut up. And then it's like...
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're not like, it's not some jerk trying to like just ruin the show. It's usually someone
Yeah.
who's just like excited and like trying to
Yeah.
be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like when like maybe they shouldn't be, but it's like they're still trying to have fun.
Yeah.
Even if it is disrupting your flow or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, like maybe your flow should be a little more like malleable to the like. You've probably seen comedians be too mean to somebody, right? Haven't you seen that a
100%.
million times where you're in the audience? So when you're up there, it is a little more like I'm trying a new idea and I might be defensive if it goes. But when you're in the audience, you're like that person's just having the greatest night of their life.
Yeah.
and you were way too mean to them, and now the whole room feels a little. I don't know. Yeah.
So I don't think normal people go to comedy shows nearly as often as like sometimes we think they do. And so you're like, this is like probably the only comedy show they've gone to like ever.
Yeah.
Like they're not like regular.
Yeah.
Like even in school, they like probably saw like some plays or like, stuff like that. But like normal people don't go to just stand up a lot. So there's not like a built-in etiquette that just like everyone gets.
That comes up on Marin
Yeah,
a lot.
it's
Of
a good
just
reminder.
like I'm 15, 20, 25, 30 years removed from being not performing comedy but going to see a comedy show, and it's like so hard. I mean, it's kind of like television writers where they're like, what do normal people do? Like, where it's like it's just like I've been doing the same job or thing, and it's just been so long that now I'm like removed from the mind frame of someone who's just going out to watch a comedy show, and
Yeah, it's like listening to music. Like I spent so long trying to learn by ear, that I don't think I can ever just hear the song as one thing anymore. You know what I mean? Like no one told me, or I didn't realize that I'd actually lose something by learning how to like hear the hi-hat separate from the bass.
But it's hard to like turn off the analytical part of your brain once you
Yeah.
start learning that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a little true with comedy too. Like you go to, people are getting away with like some hack cliche jokes, and like the general audience and wherever is like ha ha ha, and you're like, I've heard like 8 versions of this joke,
Yeah.
But it's like your knowledge is actually just making you not have a good time, as much as just a normal.
I mean,
person.
people, it's like whether it's coffee or wine or comedy or whatever, you can get a little up your own ass about how good something is. A
Yeah.
little bit, yeah.
Now it just needs to be this good to get the same dopamine that I was getting down here. The only difference is it's just more
Yeah,
expensive.
you've built up a tolerance now. and
Yeah.
that's why it is like extra special though when you do see a comic who's just like killing so hard that it does kind of like turn off that part of your brain, and you can
Right.
just kind of like just laugh and just like be in it instead of being like, oh man, what a great tag.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Totally, yeah. I do love that. Like that was like the Roy Scovel show. It's definitely for like. Were you at that?
I
too?
wasn't. I saw him last time he was in Greenville though,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
sick. God. He's one of those guys who just like always just like completely shuts off that analytical part of my brain.
I love that I can still feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that's kind of what it takes. Is that I don't know. I mean, it happens at open mics and stuff too.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
But yeah,
Like Travis Thubbin is one of those people. Like always watch his sets because just like he's so unique and particular that like it just always gets me.
yeah. I need to get him on here. I don't go down there. I don't think he comes up here much. So I haven't.
He's hard to wrangle. He is hard to wrangle.
You may have been his sub before the show. Were you his subs?
Yes, I was his sub. Yeah,
so that was nice because you're very funny. It was nice to meet you. But like, I think that was the last time I was supposed to see him.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Odd a couple years ago, and he knocked my socks off. He was awesome. It was like a really
I brought him up to
sleepy,
the Odd one time.
sleepy room, and it was just like bad. And he like came up and took off his hat and just started yelling.
Yeah.
And
There's
then
microplastics in the water.
Yeah.
They have a silo of
Cool Ranch.
Cool Ranch Doritos, and it's gonna be empty in 5 years. And what do you think happens then? You know, like,
We just quote Travis's stand-up bits for the rest of the
I love
episode.
I've known Travis longer than anybody in comedy.
Because he's kind of like a little bit like the Cody of Greenville, maybe. I mean,
little
obviously
bit.
they're both very
They would
singular.
both hate that.
Yeah.
But that's all right.
But I think they have mutual respect for one another, right?
They do. Yeah.
But yeah, sort of the unhinged, you know. Is he a redneck? Is he a genius? Like, I mean, nobody. You shouldn't label anybody.
Yes to both.
Yeah,
to all four questions.
And you see the audience just trying to decide that. That can be its own like thing. Just being like a so uncategorical, like Leah
Does
Garth
he
or something.
actually say crayon like that?
Is this like a character? Is it like really him? Like, where does the line? Like, should I be scared?
Yeah. I get a little scared sometimes.
Hey,
know?
we all get scared sometimes.
I mean, during a performance, like, I mean, that's probably maybe even what you meant, right? I mean, watching comedy, don't you get scared sometimes? Like open mics, especially. You're like, nobody's booked this person.
Yeah, this is just anyone can come up here.
Yeah.
There's no references.
I feel like I do get a little like nervous watching stand up and stuff, especially like at open mics. But more so if I'm watching like improv comedy, that's when I get like, oh boy, this could go so bad so fast.
Yeah. And it always does.
I love
every single time.
I love you talking about that guy that came to the Odd and just like bombed his ass off, and then was outside smoking a cigarette or like going to smoke a cigarette, and he's like, "Does anybody have a light?" And Julia's like, "I gave you one 4 times."
Yeah, she's like, I gave you several without missing a beat, and everybody's laughing, and he's still like, "What? You still don't know what the light is?"
That's hilarious.
I'm very anti-bullying, but I mean, there's some times where I'm just like, it's just,
every once in a while, you know, a little bullying's okay.
Yeah, right.
You're anti-bullying?
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, but I mean, in that situation,
you're pro-roasty.
Yeah, well, what is the difference? I mean, like, I think I kind of only roast people that I love.
Like,
and
roasting
respect.
comes from like a place of like love and friendship. I feel like.
Well, you talk very nostalgically about how Asheville used to be more roasty, and we need to bring that back.
It used to be more bully.
Yeah,
bully. Yeah, I mean, I guess, and it maybe does make you. What is the line with that? Like, there are some mics I've been to where I felt like it was just a little too like. It was you tried.
Yeah.
Like, there should be. It is a meritocracy at the end of the day. Like, I don't want y'all to be like, well, we like Ryan as a person, so we're gonna laugh, because I am gonna take those jokes farther away from my home base, and I want to know. You know, they were bullies. They were a bunch of assholes when I started.
But there is a little bit of like, it is a little narcissistic to take on that responsibility. A little bit to be like, I know what's good and what's not good, and I'm gonna bully this person because they suck. I mean, sometimes it's very clear that someone's doing something that's either not okay or like terrible, you know. But
there's also a difference between like bullying someone who's like doing not okay stuff on stage versus someone you're like, oh, they're just not that funny.
Yeah. Like they're creating an unsafe. Like, occasionally there'll be somebody that comes around in our scene that's just not. That just feels like a toxic masculinity, or just doesn't fit into the Asheville, you know.
You guys only get that once in a while?
Because we're so fucking mean about that shit. Yeah, I mean, you guys there's probably a fair bit more of that.
Come to the Comedy Zone Thursday, buddy. Tomorrow, come on down.
I would, it is time to go, because I mean, you can go do a
Jason
show in a
comes
place,
sometimes.
but Jason Real?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Real
We got a lot of
Cox
Jasons.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you see the mic at a place, I think there is in some ways kind of cooler than doing a book show. I mean, there's part of me that's like, well, if I'm going to drive an hour and a half, I want more time, and it's nice to get gas money. But then sampling a place's mic. You guys ever been to JJ's Bohemia in Chattanooga?
No.
It's just a beautiful. They have a Thursday mic, and it's just like, I don't know. It's sometimes it's cooler to just be one of the micers of the place.
Yeah, because there's more actual hanging out at a mic than a show.
Yeah.
Like you're seeing more of the comics from that like scene, like getting more of like a vibe of like you're kind of getting like a sampler platter of everything that's kind of going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, sometimes you'll be like, oh, I did a show there and I saw the 4. I assume they're the 4 best ones. It's
Yep.
like, no, that was just totally the random, whoever the booker could get that day. And
They're not even from there.
Yeah, they're not even from there. So you didn't get any of the...
Yeah, in Greenville, Coffee and Comedy Zone are pretty different. Like, Comedy Zone would be more similar to Disclaimer, and Coffee would be more similar to The Odd.
Yeah.
So,
I think
like,
that's fair.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like
So-
a little one. If you had to say mainstream and alt, which is
Yeah.
it's not
Like,
that.
as alt as you can get in Greenville.
yeah, like,
I
people...
thought Coffee was pretty alt. I mean, I haven't been there since the pandemic.
It definitely has the vibe of like,
the room.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best comedy rooms.
Oh yeah.
'Cause it's just so like dark and small and
with
intimate.
good lights and good sound.
Great lights, good sound.
Your attention goes up here.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of TV's on.
It's also good to record there.
Yeah.
It's really good to record there if you can like get, which I need to get I recorded last week and I'm hoping it turned out well. Amanda got it on her actual video thing, so.
Oh, that was a good set too.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
But with the mics thing, what about this idea that like watching a bunch of local comics do something for the first time that's not even really that worked out, that actually is kind of more real. That's like kind of more what the real scene is than like the polished, like the show set, like I've had this thing happen where I've gotten to see some of my favorite comedians work out the set, and then I saw a Netflix special at the end, and I preferred the work in progress. It's almost a little bit more like this. There's a meta to it.
There's like a bit of rawness there that's like fun. Like
Yeah, it's as far away. No one's like playing the script in their head. It's like, it's a raw, fun. Like I almost feel like the mic can be.
I think when you're
more
in
real.
the thing, it's more likely for you to feel that way, though. Like I think,
Right. Like you have to be
listening
there
to
for it.
Let It Be Naked, might be a little bit more appealing to you if you're like a really diehard Beatles fan or a musician or whatever, or like, I mean, I think it's not like exclusively that way, but I think when you do comedy, you're able to connect the dots a little bit easier and like understand that like, oh, that's a great premise, and like, yeah, sure, maybe the like wording of conveying that information needs to be worked out a little bit, but like because it's raw and because it's like you can tell that like you're gonna like it more, but maybe someone who's like less involved with comedy or watches less comedy might not be able to connect
Right.
why it's funny as much if it's not
Totally.
polished,
Yeah, it's like the Beatles anthology, like all the like half finished behind the scenes song. That's probably more for musicians than like the average listener, maybe. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
there is something almost like I feel like, especially as a comic, like sometimes I just want to hear like some good premises, like before the jokes worked out. But you hear someone like working on something, you're like, oh, what? Just love that you had that idea.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's kind of like the set where it's like there wasn't a lot of laughs per minute, but something happened.
Yeah,
It's like,
something's up there.
like it doesn't always have to be the amount of laughs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it should be. I've definitely seen it go too far, and then like, with vulnerability and trauma, and you're like, guys, like we gotta.
Yeah, we want some.
This
Those
is
need
a
to be
comedy show.
jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing, though. Did y'all watch the Beatles, like the whatever the real long
Get
I
back.
see it.
Get back. Yeah.
It's kind of like
I
the
did.
podcast version of the. It's like, two of them are dead, so there's not gonna. It's like what do we still have to put out? It's like them just.
The thing that was so funny about that to me is people acted like the Beatles didn't know they were being recorded. They were like, see, like they got along, and it's like, well, they're on camera. Like, let's
And they were plenty of fights too. I mean,
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is how they acted when they knew they were being filmed. Like, that doesn't like don't act like this was like secret footage that they didn't. I don't know. That like
The secret footage part with the part where they're like eating at a table and there's an audio recorder hidden. I didn't understand. That felt fake to me. There's like part of it where it's like we hit a microphone at John and Paul's table while they were eating, and this is just audio. And I'm like, that.
Why would you do that?
That technology didn't
That does not sound like a real. Yeah.
Are you a spy?
They didn't have those like fly things. That was '68. Like, have you seen what recorders looked like or whatever? Like,
I love that. I mean, that's kind of like he was asking about the podcast. They were asking about the podcast, and that's kind of like I just love creative process talk. You know, whether it's music or comic, I could just do it all day.
Shop talk, baby.
Yeah, it's like how do you come up with jokes?
I had.
What's your?
Sorry, were you?
Oh, was that a genuine like ask, or was that like
Sure. I mean, if you feel it's like if you had a thought, and then like
I
how
did
is and
not.
then this follow up is always like, and how has that evolved? You know, whether music or jokes, like how is that process kind of like as you become more refined? You know, how has that process evolved?
Of writing jokes or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making creative things that you're happy with. You hope that you get kind of a better hit, like the quality improves.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
I'm not sure that's what I'm doing, but that is
Yeah.
when you try this.
Sorry, I feel like we both spaced out in a really weird way. I don't know, maybe someone's in the air there for a second. I definitely think I'm a lot more able to recognize that the idea I have is worth a shit immediately, whereas like it was just guess and check back in the day, and I think
that's like half of like being a comedian is just like developing that skill of like just being able to recognize a good idea,
Intuition.
and just, like
which like I definitely still have things that like don't work that I'm hoping is gonna work, like when I like take it to a mic for the first time, but like the ratio is so much better than it used to be.
Yeah, just
like,
sitting at mics too and like hearing it just over hour after hour of like what you hate, what you like, why, thinking about it on the way home. I think that like this idea that like maybe you can not have to go to quite as many mics as the farther you go. You can just kind of like what you're you're visualizing it, and the car muscle is like more likely to be like 60% right, or instead of like your first year, it's like 1% of the shit you think you're like, oh, this is gonna be good, it's all terrible.
Yeah.
Also, like once you get over like the nerves of like starting out on stage and stuff, like then you can kind of like be like, oh, I don't need to go to an open mic every night if I just kind of like go with like deliberate goals to like 1 or 2 open mics and like really work on stuff instead of just kind of like scattershot.
And then you have guys like Chris Weathers who like hardly did comedy anymore, and then they would just kind of decide to come out. Like when he was living here, dude, he was so fucking.
He's
funny.
a myth. He's I mean,
I know he did a lot of comedy for a while, but like he definitely wasn't like keeping the muscles, you know, whatever. Like he would just like be like, I mean, I don't even know if he's doing comedy right
or
now.
something. I don't know what's going on with that guy. I love to talk about him on here. I'd love to have him on. Like he and Katie were here when I started, and so I got to see him every week. Yeah. And it was just like he never said the same thing twice ever. Yeah, it was different. Like sometimes he'd read one-liners, and then the next night he'd like just like take his shoe off and just do weird shit. Yeah, it's like the range.
But he could also just write I don't really write setup punchline jokes very much, but like if when I would drive Lyft. If like somehow the conversation, like I wasn't telling every person in my car like, hey, I do comedy, you want to hear a joke, but like sometimes it would like land on that. I would just tell Chris Weathers jokes because I didn't want to tell my jokes to him or whatever.
Blackburn has done them too. Blackburn have you heard him do one? He'll be like, I'm gonna do a Chris Weathers joke, and he'll just no one even knows who that is besides me. I'm like, let's hear it, this is great. Yeah, he said it was by him. I support covers.
Let's normalize doing covers in comedy.
Right? I want to do the covers show. That's the idea.
I think that'd be so fun.
You just do your favorite jokes from your fellow comedians.
Yeah.
And then you could probably like see like, oh, add a tag. And
it'd be fun to watch like other comedians do your stuff too. Like I would love that.
That would be that's the real reason.
I've had the idea.
Nobody picked any of mine? No, it's fine.
It's cool. Yeah. I think they're good, but whatever.
I've had the idea before at like a mic, if I was like one of the last comics being like, I thought the mic tonight was really good. I thought I'd do like a highlight reel of some of tonight's best jokes, and then just like go back and tell, like, I mean, as like a stupid bit, but like I do think that I don't know. I like.
We did it at Ben's one time. Ben's tune-up before
Yeah.
COVID. There was a mic, and it was like just comics. So I started doing people's jokes. But the tricky thing about that is there's like 7 comics in the room, and you do some,
Forget
and I
that
do all their
one.
jokes. And then you get to the 4th person, you're like, "Shh, I did not anticipate this, but I can't think of a single of your jokes." You
I'm
know,
usually
which is-
outside during your set.
Yeah, that, and then I'll just beat myself up about that. Shit
Yeah.
forever.
Oh yeah.
That's the real thing I
rough.
need to work on. You know, just the. Are you guys hard on yourselves as far as like, you know,
Being nice or
just I guess in any way really.
I feel like I not as much as I used to be. I feel like especially like the first like good chunky years doing stand up, like if I had a bad set, you know, you just get back in your car to go home and you just sit there for a minute like why am I doing this?
Yeah.
This is like what a waste of time. But I feel like now I feel like I've gotten past it a little bit, but there's still those sets you have where you're like, fuck, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I think it's like on the deathbed. That's like what makes it so cool, even though it sucks. You know, it's like there's got to be some suffering for a good thing. You have to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This idea, I don't know. Like
We have to
comedy, there's so
climb
much suffering.
the grind,
right? It's like
yeah.
mostly.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've had a
Mostly-
show where the stars aligned and the sound was good. There was plenty of audience. It was a good room. You know, like all
Yeah.
the stars have aligned and like it did well. And you know,
Did
like,
the right jokes in the right order with the right delivery.
Yeah,
It's
it's like there's
Didn't forget
a lot
the one
of
most
things-
important line.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
a lot of things that have to go right for a comedy show to be like really fucking
Yeah.
good. I mean, not that like they have to be perfect to be good, but like just like I mean, comedy's weird in that way that like just like if the sound's not good, it
Yeah.
can't be a great comedy
It really
show.
can't.
Like it just can't because like
You have to understand the words.
Yeah.
You know,
If, like-
music, you can kind of get by with like.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's like vibes, man.
Also, when you're playing
Literal.
music live and it's not going well, you can't actively hear that it's not going well.
Yeah.
And people are more polite
Right.
to a band that's not like they'll still like nod their heads and clap at the end of songs, but like they don't show that same level of sympathy to stand up when it's going bad.
No.
yeah.
Yeah, when music's going bad, a lot of times they're just not even noticing there's music. But when stand-up is going bad, a lot of times
you notice.
It's like everyone knows. Everyone's like, oh.
I had a thought earlier, and I might just say this, and y'all are just like, okay, or it might start a conversation. I have no idea, but like a lot of times when you talk comedy, it has to be like you make analogies to other like art forms and stuff like that to like kind of convey what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this today, where comedy is like very different from other art forms because what it is a lot more ambiguous than other art forms. Like if you're listening to music, you know you're listening to music. But a lot of times with comedy, you might not even realize that something is humorous if you don't get the joke.
Right.
But the goal of comedy is a lot more clear and concise than what the goal of any other art form is. Like music, like the end goal is not always the same, but like comedy, it's
Yeah,
to get
you're
a
going
laugh.
for a
So
laugh.
it's like kind of like inverted of
Yeah,
like
I feel that. One, the thing is clear, and the other, the goal is clear.
Yeah.
Uh,
And comedy's really like the only thing I can really think of.
Because
Like
I mean,
that.
with like somebody that works, like, hey, well, can you help me print something? Like, they're not like, you know, they're like using their body and their words. So I think just the idea that stand up is kind of like, people are like, well, I do that. I stand there.
Yeah,
and
it's
make
like
my friends
theoretically
laugh.
anyone can do it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's no barrier to entry.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't have to go buy a paintbrush and colors and canvas and
Exactly. So
learn
there's
to
like
mix.
everyday life, and then there's comedy, and like with the blur between them is kind of not clear. Whereas like you put on a bunch of instruments and tune up, and you're like 1, 2, 3. It's like song
Yeah.
begins. You know, whereas jokes you can kind of be like somebody, you're in the middle of some work meeting and somebody makes a joke. Like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no one just like sings a song in a work meeting, but you can crack a joke.
Yeah.
But it is one of those weird things where it's like most people can appreciate music. Like 98% of people like music at least a little bit, and most people have a sense of humor as well. But like, yeah, definitely how those things are integrated is like. But you can also get into like the musicality of things that aren't inherently music, like just the way people talk can, you know, there is like a tempo and, you know, sometimes like
Cadence.
the way you communicate like ending on an up or a down of just like relaying that information has like, I guess, you could notate that musically a little bit, and I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, we had Ryan Gordon was on. I think he's someone who's he has like a very musical, like there's like we're talking about all the different ways to make it be comedy, which is not even the same. It's like I'm just a charismatic person, or but he just has that. He has his own voice. He doesn't sound like Bargatze, but I think Bargatze is like kind of similar, where like the material is good. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there's just something, the musical sound. I think Hillary has some of that too. Like it just sounds like music, Like I think if you didn't speak English, you would still be compelled to listen to just the meter and the tone of it. So
I think about like the comedy albums or specials that I revisit, and like I've watched them like a million times and I don't laugh at them anymore, but I'm like, I just like listening to the it's just nice listen to the rhythms of like Chris Rock's like Bigger and Blacker or something, like where he's just so just like like percussive, and or like Gerard Carmichael where you're like, oh, it's just like a kind of a soothing low key vibe.
That's he's great that way. Both of those, and so different too, like energy levels, but they're playing the audience like I heard Quentin Tarantino say he likes the payoff for him is when he makes the movie, he goes to the theater and watches it a bunch of times, like maybe in disguise, just because that's the payoff, is like he plays the audience's emotions like a symphony conductor, where it's like you're like grossed out and then you're like, yeah, get him, and then you're like scared and then you're like gross, and like you're kind of playing their emotions, like it's almost like you can hear that with like a good comedy album. You can hear the ba-da-da-ba-ba.
I mean, I guess it's almost like same thing like when you're on stage. You know how when you're on stage and you're like, you can, I don't even know if hearing is the right word, but you're like, they're not laughing currently, but I can like feel or hear that they are like locked in still. Like I'm not, like they're like in it. They're in what I'm saying. Yeah. Even if they're not laughing. Like you can, I don't know if, because it's still silent either way, but like there is a feeling of like, oh yeah, they're like listening intently, or like they're bobbing along with it.
Yeah, that's like reminiscent of what you said at the beginning. You said something along those lines that I liked a lot, where it's like the music, just if they're being quiet, you be quiet. Like there is this, the air, All right, I'm gonna get Asheville again for just a minute here, because I'm really into the drumming, and it's like the idea that like you're literally moving the air in a room. That's one way. If you're like an alien looking at a drummer, it's like you don't understand how hearing works. You're like, he's moving the air in the room. I guess that makes it feel good, in some way. And I think there's some element of that in a comedy room where virtual comedy does not work. I mean, watching a special on a screen is one thing, but just the push pull of the air, there really is something to that cannot really be named. But like when it's like people are releasing like chemicals and shit that you can't maybe measure, like like if an
like
audience
pheromones and
and like a mob, a bunch of people start doing things that they would not do as individuals. There is this
like hive mind kind of.
You're kind of tapping into all that in some way, and like a master comedian or a great set kind of becomes some like we're all just one.
Yeah, I mean, the sociology of that is very clear that is a thing. Like I don't even think it has to be like, I mean, it's just that like, I mean, you can observe it where it's just like sometimes it's just like there aren't enough people in this room to create that effect, and you can feel the difference of just like people get kind of scared to be like, because it's just like, I don't know, like laughing hard as shit is kind of like a vulnerable thing to do. So like,
because everybody sounds dumb when they're really laughing.
I mean, I sound insane when I laugh. I mean, you've heard my laugh.
You're not in control of like your face.
You like if someone took a freeze frame of your, whatever, it's not a flattering thing. It's like gorging a bunch of food or whatever, like you're making ridiculous sounds. You don't look flattering, so like when like there is like a group experience of being vulnerable, and also in itself it is an involuntary thing that's happening to you that someone is putting upon you, and you have to be like, just kind of like a hypnotist needs the person to be open to suggestion. They kind of need to be open to paying attention and experiencing it. And
you see the host like has to die on that sword a lot of times because they're not ready. They don't even they haven't got there yet.
And I'm not saying that more people is always better, like to the point of a stadium, but like definitely like
air to body ratio. How about that? Like, really objective terms. Like even just a brewery where it's like this giant drafty warehouse and there's like a ton of air between you and the ceiling, you can still have like 100 people down there, but it's like this high and there's this sea of air.
That ATBR is still.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like you're only going to kill so hard. Whereas like an elevator or the odd.
Yeah.
Like it's at that side. I think if they're being quiet on the other side, you get that compression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
laughs are like bing bing. And somebody else's laughs like bounces back, so it makes you kind of loosen up.
And everyone's just like physically closer together, which I think kind of helps.
Yeah.
Have you all ever read Comedy Book by Jesse David Fox?
Yeah, I haven't. I've only read like some of it. I love his podcast.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love that, but he talks about like the state of play a lot in that, and how it's like, like obviously like comedy is like me do a thing to get you to laugh, but it's like the stand-up, you kind of have to like get the audience into a state of play. Like, all right, here, like I want to joke and play with these ideas. Let me help you get into that state of mind all together to where we can play together, which I think is interesting. And it's like, I guess the older you get, the harder it is to kind of get into that state of play. But
yeah, I like that term a lot. That's a cool.
Yeah, and like I think a good club, like you ever do like a really great show, like once in a while, where it's like it just feels like the environment has created that state of play.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, I can just do my jokes. So many of the gigs I do, it's like the brewery where you're just trying to like pull something.
Yeah, it's like
and it's like I guess that makes you better, but it's also like God,
it's not what you want to do.
Yeah, like how about a conducive to play situation? Sometimes.
Well, it's like a show where you're like, you're not just like, oh, I killed. You're like, oh, we had fun.
Yeah.
Like me and the crowd had fun together.
Yeah, yeah. That's everything.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, that's another thing I'm trying to get to slowly. Like the us, the big.
Yeah.
Like it's not just me and them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like my natural inclination is always just to be like, no, I've written this and I've prepared it, so just watch me do my thing. But it's like that's so much better if you can like really like connect.
Yeah, even just at the top of the set, just try to pause a little longer. Like I try to have this rule, especially if it's like a 5-minute mic and I just have stuff to run. Sometimes I'll go too fast because I want to say my stuff. But it's like on any longer set, anytime someone blurts out anything, like stop what you're doing and just go with that. And then that'll be one of those things again. I'll listen back to the set and I'll be like, I didn't do it. Like you gotta just like. There's only so many invitations to the right now, and I think it's an opportunity to like wake the audience up more. And am I getting to Asheville?
No, I was. He picked the better side of the couch. This side is.
Oh, is it awkward?
Oh man, it's a mess down here.
I mean, hey, you
sorry.
got the
really
cup
have to
over
be
there.
too. It's 7:30. I'm gonna be back. It's unbearably. You guys hold it down for a second.
Okay, all right, we're doing it.
Okay.
Man, I really did not do a very good job on Pac-Man over there. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, Pac-Man's not for everybody.
No,
it's a tough game.
Have you like these like arcade games that used to exist past in the day? Like they were just extorting these kids' quarters.
Oh, yeah.
Like they would just like have it so it's just like you lose after 30 seconds, and they're just like, all right, another quarter. Which like a quarter back in the day, like
bro,
early 90s.
I mean, even today, if I see a quarter on the ground, I'm getting hyped up. That's exciting. I found a quarter today at Walmart. That was awesome. Highlight of my day.
Highlight of your day.
Oh yeah.
Not thick as a brick. It wasn't your highlight.
That's second.
All right.
It's quarter, then Jethro Tull.
No.
Now it's listening to Ryan P.
Yeah, I was trying not to acknowledge it, but yeah, dude, I just kept earlier like a light changed over there, and I thought that guy with half a mustache was gonna come back up here, and I've been like waiting him.
Honestly, I kind of want him to at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now it's my turn.
What if the guy with half a mustache had come up and taken your place, and you came back out? And it was
Like, dude, all right, I really don't like you now. Like, I was a little more uncomfortable than I was letting on earlier when I was setting up, but now I'm just gonna have to say.
I was doing some of the talking. I don't know if you noticed that, where I was like, Ryan does not want to interact with this guy. I'm just gonna kind of like, I don't know if I should have. I was being a little presumptuous of that being what you wanted, but
it's weird because people have come up here a few times. They've been like, "Oh, there's a podcast," but that dude was ready to just be like,
"Everybody loves me.
Yeah.
I'm here to party, man."
I mean, I don't know.
I might get a free slice though.
It's great. Like it's good for him. I kind of wish I was more like that in some ways. I guess just
oblivious.
Like, just oblivious. Just instead of like being like, "What did I? Was I? Mean? Was I too mean?"
Dude, the worst thing to be, I think people think I'm oblivious and I'm not. where it's just like where it's like, no, I could tell what's happening. You know, like,
That's kind of a funny premise.
yeah.
Yours-
Well, I mean, I think people have this like impression that weird people aren't aware they're weird.
Yeah, because a lot of them aren't, or maybe they all are. And I'm just
Yeah,
assuming.
I don't. I mean, that is, someone who is kind of like the actual weirdo. Kind of comes up on this podcast a lot. Would be Leah.
Yeah,
It's just that would be like a little bit of a question of like,
yeah.
what aspects of Leah that we find to be different is she aware of that are different about her or whatever, and that's like that is a question of perception, I guess, a little bit of and like introspection is like very important to comedy, and like Leah crushes, so like obviously she's doing something right, like.
So it's so weird, but yeah, I've been talking to her on here. I was surprised at how many coherent thoughts she had. I don't know. That sounds terrible. But
No,
it's
yeah,
like,
I
it's just
didn't
not,
know
it's,
if I was
it's just not the
supposed to-
sage persona at all. So it's,
Yeah. No, talk to her about Naruto, dude. You'll get some coherent thoughts there.
It is funny when like you kind of get to know someone on stage and then you talk to them off stage and you're like, oh, that you're not that at all.
Well,
Yeah.
that comes up with when you
Yeah.
talk to about comedy with people who don't really know that much about comedy, and they'll be like, "Oh, that comedian's like clearly autistic," and it's like they're doing a character, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like
Even if you're not setting out to do a
Yeah.
character, like you end up doing like even if you're like I'm being myself, it's like you're doing like a version
Right.
Yeah.
of yourself.
Yeah.
like Nathan Fielder isn't
Exaggerate
actually
yourself.
as weird as he presents himself on Nathan for You in every talk. Like he's doing a bit. Like Andy Kaufman wasn't the, like
Yeah. Like
he's not-
Stephen Wright, like how weird is he?
yeah.
Like
I
at
bet he's like the
breakfast.
most dry, normal dude
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
dude, you know who pisses me off? Jeff Goldblum, the actor Jeff Goldblum. He's not that weird.
No,
like you can tell
no.
he's like faking. Like he wants
Fake weird.
Yeah, he's pushing it too hard.
He definitely like leans into
he
like
leans
the
into like, oh,
memification of himself.
I'm old now, so I need to be like.
I like
even
it when he
weirder.
plays a villain, and that's
Yeah.
about it. My wife's a fan. Did see The Fly recently, and I
Oh,
was blown away.
love The
Yeah,
Fly.
I never saw it. Usually it's too late, but I was like, that's...
That movie
Yeah.
rocks. That holds up.
Looks better than any special effects I've seen in the last...
I
every
s-
Avengers movie,
I-
worse.
Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny on his podcast was talking about how he like pretended like The Fly wasn't a movie already and like pitched the movie to his son as if it wasn't already really a thing, and his son was like, so what would happen then? And he's like, dude, I think like he would just come out of the machine and be like part, and they're like, oh my god, and,
What?
just like telling the
Was that a
What?
bit? Or wait, what?
Well,
The
he
thing
was
you
on a
just said?
podcast
Okay.
and was just like talking about like going back and watching old movies with his son that he hadn't seen, and like before bed he was just like retelling the plot of The
Okay.
Fly to his son as
Yeah.
if he came up with it, like sort of deal.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
a fun space, the before bed stories to your
Yeah.
kids, because I've had some moments like that where you're kind of like, I just got to pull some shit out.
Yeah, we're just freestyling
Yeah,
now.
and what did I watched that movie last week, and there's no
Yeah.
adults here to like even judge whether I do it. I just have to convince this kid
So it's,
it's
like
good.
it's these three scientists. They gotta like catch all these ghosts in New York City, and like for some reason the ghosts are just like yeah. But
That was
did
That's a cute one,
yeah.
a gross cute one.
The podcast moment that I think, I'm sorry I keep like referencing old
I love
episodes.
it. Like, most people come on and they're like, "What's this fucking thing called again? When do I get my reel?" All right,
It's one of
which
your
is also fine.
which
but
is
I
one
do
of your
love that you're
solo ones.
the
It's one of your
Wikipedia
solo
admin of this podcast. Yes.
when you're talking about that like old Russian tale about like the girl who like goes away and plays piano and everything
Yeah.
like that. Dude, when you told that and you wrapped it up and you're like, yeah, that's like pretty dark story. I feel like if I told my daughter that before bed, she'd be like, what the fuck is this? Dude, I actually, that's like the hardest I've laughed listening to this podcast when you just like,
That's like just getting like one little comment like that some weird thing I tried. Like one person actually was like,
Yeah.
that landed. That is like such an amazing thing, because it is. There's a lot of new spaces, a lot of new
I-
spaces to explore here.
and I have another note. If that's
And I
okay.
listen back all the time, and I'm like, God, I sound like an asshole.
No,
So-
no. I like the solo episodes, dude. When you your most recent solo one where you're talking about doing the algorithm thing,
Yeah.
your algorithm bit that you've been doing recently.
The
And you
Instagram
really
booties
had
bit.
some good tags for that. Like you should go back and listen to that solo episode.
Yeah, that's a thing.
You were in a kind of a flow state
I've
that time.
heard that is, and that's kind of the interesting thing. Talking to yourself is that like I'm very comfortable talking to myself in the shed. So like, why can't I be that comfortable up there? You know what I mean? Like I still kind of.
It is a different thing once you're like, oh well, this is like stand up mode.
Yeah.
Your brain kind of locks into that.
Right, and maybe it needs to be more like this is just fucking around mode. Like, but that's kind of scary for me too.
Yeah.
It's like what will I say? Who knows? There's no edit.
Or will I have anything to say?
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Even
Oh,
worse.
that's my fear.
Even worse.
Of getting on stage and like trying to like be loose and like no plan. It's just empty head.
You just
like,
freeze and
Yeah.
everyone's
Yeah.
just like, "Hey, what's up?"
6:40. Coble, I have you 5th, and Chris, I have you 2nd.
awesome. Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
What time is it?
7:40.
Oh, you said 6:40. Okay,
That's all right.
7:40.
Cool.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. I get to perform too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Old guy's going last again.
I was like, that was a
yeah,
passive aggressive way to say that she wants to come back on the podcast.
Yes. No, you were on the list though. I saw you.
I just
Yeah.
talking shit, you know.
No, but that was. I mean, am I being weird about the odd thing with like?
I forget where we were at. Wait, are we talking about?
Well, we were talking about like being before Miranda came up. We were talking about like being loose.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like kind of getting in a different
No,
mindset.
I actually got a text from Cody last night that he was like he listened to the solo episode and had some similar things. So it's kind of interesting that maybe this is like a new. I'm able to like get myself. I guess we all you're doing your thing yourself, and then you actually put a stamp on it and put it out there, and then it's like maybe the stand up mode, you on stage like needed to but it's like. On the one hand, you want to exaggerate your personality and go harder, but then on the other hand, you want to like chill out more and be more relaxed and more yourself. So it's like you have to hold this dichotomy.
Yeah.
That's
weird.
Yeah, you have to hold the two opposites a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that too Asheville?
Well, I do think I think it's also weird because like you want to establish some sort of like kind of character or like you want the crowd to kind of feel like they know what you are, but also like surprise in comedy and making twists and like
Right.
reveals or like unexpected things is funny. So like it's all like a song and dance, I guess, a little bit. Because like I do feel like when you were doing that solo thing and talking about like you were like speeding it up and kind of like it seemed like you were like being a little bit naughty. Like I'm sorry to use that word,
No,
but like
it feels naughty. I mean,
yeah.
it's like it's a little scary in the sense that you're not doing it in front of people and then you're putting it out there. Like there's a little bit more fear that like
It's almost a little more vulnerable.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, because like we all in a room, everybody's seeing. It's a public thing.
Yeah.
It's not a private. Putting a private thing out on the internet. Like you ever like sing a song, like where you like. I don't know if you guys sing when you record music, but it's like a really vulnerable. Like you could only do that in your room at that moment, and then you like put it on the internet. And you're still in that delusional phase where you think everybody's going to listen to it, so you feel like
there's a video of me in the shower on the internet right now.
There's a video of you in the shower.
We made a reel together like a month ago.
No big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah,
It's just a reel.
Plug the reel.
Yeah,
I missed it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I thought you would know. It's okay. It's not a big deal.
Well, they're
But
disposable,
It's
so.
I kind of like don't really see. I kind of get on and post my shit and get off.
Yeah,
but then
Honestly, that's probably the healthiest way to do it.
You
you have to do it, so I just do it. But it's also like it seems like kind of shitty too because it's like I'm going like look at my shit, but I'm like I'm not.
I don't know how to
look at it anyways.
Hell no. Like,
Sorry.
That's great, dude. This is fine. No,
We'll link it down there in the description.
I can't get mad at anybody because, like, honestly, like, outside of paying rent and making sure my cat doesn't die, I have, like, no obligations at all. Like, I have a car payment.
I know.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, we can tell Coble.
Yeah. I mean, like,
Look how relaxed you are.
I can't throw stones at people for being like, why didn't you, watch the 7 reels I sent you or whatever. Like, it's like
Throwing stones. That's nice. That's a nice visual.
Yeah, you haven't heard that before?
No, I have, but I just like.
I've been saying that a lot. I don't know what. I feel like something prompted me to start saying that.
Show don't tell. I've just been trying to talk a little more with pictures.
Making flip books and stuff.
Oh, it was the It's Always Sunny podcast. they had the writing duo, Martyr and Roselle. They've been on like a lot of, like their writing duo that's worked on a lot of stuff, and they did It's Always Sunny, and that was something that Scott Martyr would say a decent amount is like, but I do this so I can't throw stones. So like I don't know, I guess like glass house metaphor of like don't throw stones in your glass or whatever.
Yeah.
So throw stones. I've been saying that pretty regularly. I've been
I
saying
mean, it's
that
also
tickled a
it's
lot.
also like it's in the Bible, like burying somebody up to their neck too. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking,
Okay.
which is like,
Yeah, it's been since language or whatever.
it's like
Stones
the
are
first
very
weapon, like throwing a rock.
since
I mean,
the
that was
Stone
like,
Age, man.
Yeah, it was before archery for sure,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or spears. Just
Yeah.
have you thought about throwing a rock at one of those birds? You hit it hard enough.
Have you tried hitting two of them?
Yeah. Probably predates humanity even.
I don't know.
How are we feeling?
I think we can wrap it up. I think
All
we're at an hour plus.
How you feel about the episode?
I think it's great.
Keep it straight with
I
me.
think I'll probably drop it in like 5-10 minutes in. But no, I have a intuition. It's like it's like
Yeah.
it's great. It's a great
Coble, as
episode.
a super fan, how do you feel about this episode?
I feel like we were pretty loose, and I feel like there was a nice balance of like conceptual, like thoughtful stuff, and just kind of dishing about the way comedians do. So I'll put it in A tier. I don't think it's an S tier episode. I don't think it's Cody Clay Jones level or the.
Was that a top shelf one?
Oh, that was a great episode, dude. Like that was the one where like Cody was like being funny and like
That was the one Cody was being funny.
and then that like
Unlike those
Cody
other-
getting like weirdly like aggressive about Tommy Saxton out of nowhere.
That was weird.
That was
Nobody hurts my Derek. It's like, whoa, dude, what are you?
No,
whoa,
Cody-
Tommy. I don't think Tommy did it.
Cody got in a different frame of mind when he knew he was leaving relatively soon.
Yeah.
Like, were you there at the Kava Bar show?
I always love Cody's loose lipness.
Yeah.
Like he didn't give a
He
fuck.
was on another level for the last
I missed
Kava
the
show.
Kava
Yeah,
Bar show.
he was like
I was-
firing shots.
It was
at
like
everybody.
Christmas
Yeah,
week.
it was like 27th or something, 28th maybe. I don't know. And then Carrie and Petey was a really good episode too.
That's good.
The Mike Mello episode was really good.
Oh, nice.
The Coble's a lot episode was good.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. And I really I liked this one is particular to me. The Miranda Petey one was just funny as hell to me because it was just like so unusual, like
That
just
was
talking
right
about
after
Justin
the-
Blackburn for like 30 minutes straight, and then Petey just getting fixated on Scooby-Doo,
Yeah.
and like you made it clear like, hey guys, I don't really like watch TV, and then they were just like, oh sorry, but we're gonna talk about cartoons for the next
Good.
hour.
Now we can just not have to deal with You're fucking.
That was just funny to me. I don't know why.
That was a special one because that was like after the Helene.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was maybe the first time in the shed too. Or, no, I guess I did Blackburn and Cody in there at night one time. But I mean, it's just been amazing. It's like because I really like jamming. Like I'm just making sounds of people. Like I just getting out there. All these things. I repeat the same 8 ideas on here. But but this is what we're doing. We're just jamming. We're just making sounds. We're trying to match tones. It's like that space you were saying about trying to match the audience's like that skill or whatever it is. Like the podcast is a long version of it instead of just a 5-minute version of it. I really like that. So yeah, you guys are great guests. This is gonna be a great episode.
Thanks, buddy.
Don't listen to it if it'll make you feel. Some people are like, I don't want to listen because I hate the way I sound.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to listen.
We've been
Yeah, you don't
good
need to.
about not like talking about other comics too much.
Yeah,
I
the
feel
shit
like
talking
sometimes
does
it
get
gets-
out of control sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think I do it that much. I think it's usually just some guest will come on and say
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
If I do, it's usually somebody I love. Like I'll be like
Yeah.
talk shit about Cody because it's just
Are we in the
obvious.
epilogue right now? Like this isn't actually.
Yeah,
going
this is
on
the
the-
epilogue. This will be the last link in the Spotify. It'll probably say epilogue now because we said epilogue so many times.
Yeah.
This is like it's slowly fading to black.
Just need to know when I'm off mic. I guess
The weird music's already.
The
Okay.
drums.
Well, should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, I feel
All
good
right.
about that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.